Hello, people of the internet! How are you guys doing today? Today we're doing the UA Spec. What's the UA Spec, you ask? Unrelenting Assault for the Prot warrior. Now, the idea behind this is it reduces the cooldown of your overpower and revenge abilities by 4 seconds, so it reduces it down to 1 second. But not only that, but we go over to the protection tree to get improved revenge, increases the damage, and causes it to strike an additional opponent. So it turns into a bit of a cleave, but also, whenever you dodge, block, or parry, it resets the cooldown of your revenge. So basically, the idea behind this entire spec is to just spam revenge. You revenge, you cleave, and you blast the mobs down. It's incredibly high DPS. Yeah, there's some pros to it, there are some cons to it. We're gonna get into a little bit of each today. Like I said, it's incredibly high DPS, especially when you have a group of mobs on you. I'd say up to about 3 or 4 is the ideal gameplay for the UA Spec warrior. Once you get into more and more mobs, deep prot actually becomes a lot better, simply because you're spamming your thunderclap for AoE threat, you're spamming your shockwave that does AoE damage. Well, it's frontal cone damage, but you know what I mean. And it also provides the stun. Then you have the concussive blow, but with this we're also taking sweeping strikes, which next 5 melee attacks strike an additional opponent. Ideally you want those to be your cleaves and your revenges. You could probably squeak out a thunderclap. You'll see me do it a couple times throughout this run. You'll see my initial attack before I start going into my cleaving is going to be a thunderclap, just like it was in deep prot. It's the same mentality. Thunderclap has good initial AoE threat, especially because it's not capped to how many targets it can hit. That's the most beneficial part of thunderclapping at the beginning. It slows down their attack speed too. It's only by about 10%. So it is a good little bit of damage mitigation, although in the UA spec anyways, you do want to wear very mitigation heavy gear, because you need to dodge, block, or parry to use our main threat and damaging ability, revenge. You're not going to be shield slamming too often. The only time I would recommend hitting shield slam is to either purge a magical buff off of an enemy target, or whenever you have rage, a GCD is up, and you by some reason haven't procced revenge yet. At that point, I would say don't wait for revenge to come up. Definitely use a sunder, use a thunderclap, use a shield slam. Make sure you're filling in those GCDs. Don't just sit there and wait for revenge if by some reason the GCD comes around and you haven't procced it yet. The downsides to this spec is once you get into large packs of AoE mobs, you're not going to be so great at holding threat on all of them, especially against classes like a warlock, a mage. In the standard UA build, you're not going to be taking vigilance, so you're not going to have that added threat generation on the mobs either. So if the warlock starts popping seeds off rip and I'd say there's more than 4 targets, I'd say once you get to about 6 or 7, it starts to get a little dicey to where you really gotta not focus up, but you just gotta be very intentional with which mobs you're hitting with your primary revenge target. You want to make sure you're constantly alternating and tabbing while you revenge. And then from there, you pretty much just try and pick it up as you go. Always keep in mind, Demo Shout and Thunderclap are decent ways to pull up the mobs and get them together. We're also going to be stance dancing quite a lot because we no longer have the Warbringer talent. So in order to charge, in order to intercept, we have to swap our stances. So you're going to see that quite a lot. We're going to be popping off like this. Let me Thunderclap because I didn't have a revenge up. Keep going. Let me run over, interrupt. But yeah, so you're going to see this is incredibly high damage. Let me keep that little bit of rage. We're going to go ahead and sweeping strikes, berserker rage, pop in, thunderclap just for the initial threat, and then we're going to go into our revenge. And this is what you're doing. Now that I have a little bit over 50 rage, I'm going to start cleaving in revenge. Let me do a shield block. Shield block is not only good for making sure you're not taking a lot of damage, but it's also really, really good at keeping revenge procced and making sure, like, I would say the uptime of your shield block is going to be your main damaging window. You're going to do the absolute most damage while you have shield block up, because it is going to be essentially guaranteeing that revenge procs. But a downside for this is the two areas you're not going to be good at, or you're not going to excel in terms of, like, in comparison to deep prot, is going to be on boss fights and large packs of AoE mobs. Let me do my sweeping strikes. See, we already lost the target. We're gonna go back on him. Make sure we put it on her. We're gonna spell reflect the lightning bolt and absolutely go in. But the reason why, like, some bosses are you're gonna be really bad on, especially the ones that attack slowly, on fights like Patchwork, you're still gonna do pretty well, just because he's a dual wielding boss, so each weapon is going to be attacking you rather consistently, so you'll still be able to build up that threat, and you'll still do decent damage. But on a slow fight, say a Kel'Thuzad, you're definitely going to be feeling the pain. Your revenge is not going to be proccing nearly as often. It's not going to feel nearly as good against, say, a Patchwork or an AoE fight. Because you can see even here, it kind of lags behind a little bit, or I have to fill some other GCDs with something until revenge comes up. Like the last 3-4 seconds of that entire fight with that mob, there was nothing I could do with revenge. Because if he's not attacking, then I cannot proc my main ability. And in those moments, you're really gonna feel it, whereas in deep prot, you'd still be going in. You'd still have Devastate, which does good damage. You still have your shield slams you'll be proccing. When we don't have revenge up, we're using shield slam anyways, but in deep prot you can proc the free no rage shield slams that feel amazing to play. I should have swapped over and hit my recklessness before, because that's also something I recommend, is recklessness and then a shield slam into a revenge. Does quite a good amount of juicy damage right at the start of a fight. Especially since it doesn't share a cooldown with your shield wall or your retaliation or anything like that, which you'll probably see me pull a retaliation here. Not in this fight, but later on in the run. I've been trying to work out what the best times or best pulls for retaliation are. So if any of you guys have an idea, feel free to let me know in the comments. That would be awesome. I would love to share some ideas and bounce some ideas around this community. Because I really think there's some ways we can min-max it to really, like, you know, get a retaliate going, get sweeping strikes, enter with a thunderclap, start going in with your cleaves and your revenges, and absolutely smack mobs. We could probably push like 12k DPS or something absolutely absurd. You see, I don't have any revenges. I died. Okay. Let's check the healing. I mean, he's doing all right. All right, it happens to the best of us, man. It's all good. I completely lost my train of thought with that, though. But it's also, I'd like to say, for the record, the threat per second for UA spec is not as good as deep prot. It's just not. I'll have some graphs I'll put on the screen now in editing, but it's really not as good. It falls off. The damage also isn't really that much higher in order to justify losing all of that threat. Especially when it comes to the AoE packs of mobs. The only reason I hit Thunderclap there is because I was trying to run up the stairs. We're gonna cleave, Thunderclap. I realize that my sweeping strikes is up right now, but I'm not going to use it solely because we're already in a tight spot with a lot of mobs. If I swap out of stance, that's going to be increased damage. We've already died once with the healer, so I don't want to, like, put myself in a compromising position like that. I should have charged in. I didn't have any rage anyway, so it's not like I had something to lose. But pop a demo shout. Go ahead and pop a battle shot. I just now realized, and I did a previous run before this, and we had a paladin in here, so I thought I still had the might buff. But now I realized he left and it's gone, so I may as well pop a juicy battle shout, because our friend over here is doing the commanding shout anyways. And I'll go over the glyphs in a minute. Pop a shield block. That way we can go right into the revenge at the start. Hopefully every time he attacks, we'll be ready. It looks like that's a no. There we go. You see what I mean? If you're not ready to hit something else during that fight, or during some of these slower fights, then you're just going to be sitting there with your meat in your hand, not really sure what to do next. It does feel a little uncomfortable and clunky at that, and in those moments like this, you see? I'm just kind of sundering, waiting for something to happen, waiting for shield slam to come off cooldown, waiting for revenge to be proc, just waiting for something. That doesn't feel that great. But for our glyphs, we've got glyph of blocking, just like we did with deep prot. We've got the glyph of battle shout. We're going to be rocking glyph of battle and our minor glyphs. Then we got the glyph of thunderclap, obviously, for the AoE packs, since we're not very good at AoE in these situations in this spec. We've got the glyph of sweeping strikes, obviously reduces rage cost of sweeping strikes to 100%. That completely negates any need to manage your threat and your blood rage timer in order to use sweeping strikes before pulls. This way you can just make a macro that'll swap your stance, do all the cool stuff, get you back into defensive stance, and you're ready to go. Then we've got glyph of cleaving, increase the number of targets cleave hits by 1. That's fantastic, especially for cleave fights, which is where this spec excels. We also have glyph of charge, increases charge range. That's just because warrior doesn't really have a lot of cool minor glyphs. Like, I think we can all agree on that. They really don't have a lot of interesting ones. Some of them are cool, some of them are nice, like extending the duration of the shouts. But I mean, at the same time, like, are you really excited about a 4-minute, 5-minute battle shout? Is that really doing it for you? If anything, it's just like, okay, I now have to hit that button a little bit less. Like, who cares? Yep, just waiting for revenge. Is this guy, can I get a heal, please? Okay. What is bro doing? He's doing damage. Oh no, he's just doing the... What? Okay, he's holy. I don't know why, I was thinking of Prot when I saw Shield of Righteousness. That's just from Legion brain. Yep, so that's all the cool stuff. Let's go in, and this is the perfect opportunity to show you how we are with AoE fights. I completely wasted my blood rage. I realize that. Don't hate me. You can mock me in the comments, that's fine. See, right through. Then we're gonna try and cleave. Don't have revenge procced. Pop a thunderclap. We're gonna cleave and revenge these first 2 targets as they come up, just because it's 2 targets. Don't have a revenge ready. Cleave and sunder. Pop a revenge. Pop a revenge. Get in there. Fuck, I hate that slow. Hit a thunderclap to get them all in there. Get out of the thing. Get out of the thing. Ugh. Taunt him. Don't have an ability active. Gotta pull him in with a nice heroic strike and shield slam. You guys got him? Trusting you, bros. I was only able to pick up 1. I'm trusting you guys. Ah, fucking hamstring. Get him, get him, get him, get him. Which side is he on? Ooh. Got him. You thought you were gonna get me a second time? I don't think so, brother. I don't think so. Are they coming? We're gonna pop our sweeping strikes, get back in the defensive stance, pop him a nice little shield slam, come over here for revenge. And now we wait. Run over here, blast him with a good one. That should be all 3. Here we go. Ready to fight. Open up with shield block and make sure we have the optimal usage of our revenge. We want to be using it ideally every single GCD you want to be using on our good friend Revenge. Y'all better move. He's coming for you. 2, 1, 0. Done. Yeah, when he does casted abilities, you'll feel that a lot because you don't get to use revenge. But I will say, as you guys may have been looking at the DPS meter through some of these AoE pulls, is that the highlight of UA Spec is it does a lot of damage. It does a lot. I was looked over at one of the fights earlier a couple minutes ago. You'll have to look. But I was pulling up like, I think I did like 7.8k DPS at one point. Where's our healer friends here? All right, give him a second to drink up. Oh, let's go. Charge in, thunderclap, hit that, revenge, revenge, spell reflect, keep smacking him with revenge. There we go, 8.3 thousand damage. Survey says, holy shit, this guy goes ham. That's the highlight of the spec. That's the reason why you would go into this spec. You really don't benefit anything else out of it. You're not doing more threat. You're not any more survivable. That comes from the gear you're wearing being more mitigation heavy so that you can maximize your avoidance. So that comes from the gear. Your talents are okay. You're still doing the 5 dodge chance just because that helps. It increases the chance to block attacks. All of that. You're still doing all that nice stuff, but you're losing a lot of what makes deep prot so good. So good. You're losing all of it. Go ahead, pop retaliation, come around here, bring him in. It's all good. AoE taunt. Gonna attack the red ones. By the time they get out of that, we will absolutely have threat on these mobs. There you go. How much damage does retaliation do? Probably not a lot. It doesn't even register. That's alright. I honestly didn't even check to make sure it still stays. I'm pretty sure it did. Just a week ago, when I was toying around with it, it did. It still remained whenever you swapped stances. Just like shield wall, you can use it in berserker stance and everything, and it's all good. The only thing is when you take off the shield wall expires. Going right into the pool. We don't need to wait around for anything. Gonna pop a meaty shield slam because we don't have revenge proc, and then we're gonna go right into our revenge. Not gonna thunderclap him just because we want to make sure he's attacking as quickly as possible. He uses a two-hander, so it's a slower swing speed. We don't want to minimize that. We want to make sure he's attacking just as fast as he can so that we can actually get some revenge procs out of this. Honestly, if your group is feeling confident enough and you're running UA Spec, what I would personally recommend is you pull the ads with the boss. That way you're like, try and use them as revenge batteries is what I would call it. Is like, they keep attacking you, they don't do a lot of damage. The fear might be an annoying mechanic, but if you have a priest, they can fear ward. If you have a shaman, you can tremor totem. There are ways you can work around it. But them constantly attacking you is going to feed into your revenge procs, especially in the moments whenever you have shield block up. You'll pretty much have it active the whole time. We need to get out of this. Is that all? Yeah, that's all of them. And there we go, UA Spec. Let's talk about more of the talents. Let's hang out here for a minute. So 5, and this is the standard UA build. There are also other methods and variations to it. Like there's somewhere you don't put those 2 points in the second wind, and instead you put it into improved charge. Things of that nature. I don't know why you would want to do armored to the teeth. Maybe you could pump a little more crit if you wanted to get 2 into that instead. In protection, you can actually grab vigilance if you wanted to. Just take a point out of second wind. Boom, there you go. Vigilance if you feel like you need it, if you feel like you could really benefit from it. Actually, 2 points out of second wind to get concussive blow and vigilance. That way you at least have a single target stun, and then in AoE packs you have the added bonus of, say, the warlock threat or the boomkin threat coming in clutch, giving you an extra little 10% threat. That would always be nice. glyphs, we went over all the glyphs. Alright, now that's done. Now that I've shown you the run a little bit, you and I need to have a little talk, right? We gotta just sit down for a second. You and I gotta talk. This is not a build I would recommend to most people. I would say it excels at older content, doing legacy content. If you want to run some old raids, you can absolutely pump damage, especially since naturally being a higher level, and like higher geared, your avoidance would be so incredibly high versus those targets that you would just be spamming revenge for days. And you will absolutely nuke down the mobs. For the Utgard Keep solo farm, even if you were level 70 wearing Sunwell gear, that is still an excellent method. That's the spec I would highly recommend you run if you had the avoidance, if you had the gear for it. Even at level 70, you can do solo runs of Utgard Keep. That's definitely a way a lot of people have done it. But I want to show you these graphs right here, just to make a point to you guys, to show you that not only does UA spec lack a lot of the versatility that deep prot brings to the table, talking about your vigilance, talking about your shockwaves, your active use of thunderclaps for larger AoE threat. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you've seen I rarely ever struggle with AoE threat. We absolutely dominate in dungeons. You're also losing the versatility of your Warbringer, which means that if you want to charge, if you want to intercept, if you want to do something of that nature, then you have to swap stances, which means you're not getting the threat bonus from defensive stance during that time. You're also not getting the damage reduction, which granted it's only about 10%, but still it helps. But also your damage per second and your threat per second versus a boss. Let's say you're pulling a raid boss and your damage is going to be worse and your threat is going to be worse in most of the scenarios. Right here, this graph goes by swing speed. If the only scenario where UA spec excels over deep prot in damage, mind you, damage, not threat, so you're not doing any more threat in this scenario. You probably don't need threat anyways, just because of the bonuses we've got, but anyways, is in a boss fight with a 0.7 second swing timer. That's it. That's it. And that's a 10% bonus to damage per second without vigilance. With vigilance, it's a 7.82% average. So sometimes you'll do more, sometimes you'll do less. All depends on the revenge uptime. You're essentially turning such a versatile spec as the deep prot warrior tank to a one button class. And I don't understand why someone would like actively want to do that. It's like, oh, I have all of these varying tools. I have such a robust toolkit. How can I shrink this down to where my entire rotation, my entire build, everything I am revolves around pressing a single button? Like, there are a lot of people that meme on, say, the Frost Mage for calling it a one-button class, or even Hunters with the one-button rotation macro. So I don't know why I see a lot of people that are like really into this and like genuinely want to be UA spec. I personally think it's just another Fury Prot meme, but not nearly as good and doesn't really bring as much to the table in terms of raid composition as Deep Prot, or as Fury Prot even, Deep Prot or Fury Prot. So I don't know why there are a lot of people obsessed in running it, even in scenarios where they don't particularly benefit from it. If you want to do it for more damage, that's fine, but you also gotta just keep in mind the things you're sacrificing for the raid. Because if you, let's say you're on a boss fight where you have solid revenge uptime and you're spamming revenge, that also means you're not sundering. It also means you're not reducing the boss's armor percentage, which is a massive DPS boost to all of the melee and damage dealers and the rest of the raid, solely because you personally want to do more DPS. I don't really see that as a good decision, really. Not saying you're bad for running this spec, not saying you shouldn't run this spec. Honestly, if you enjoy it, go for it. I'm just trying to take a genuine look at it and see what value does it actually have? And I feel like it's best for solo content and legacy content. It's pretty one-dimensional overall, not a lot of versatility, not a lot you can do with it, not a lot of variability. There aren't a lot of ways you can handle different scenarios, and that's pretty much it. I highly recommend Deep Prot for 98% of players and 99.9% of content. I guess it might be a good play for PvP. I'm not really a PvP guy, so if any of you guys know more about that, definitely go ahead and post it in the comments. I feel like against like a rogue, it would be pretty good, as long as you're not getting stun locked. But I feel like a rogue dual wielding, or even a fury up against a fury warrior, I feel like you would absolutely crush them, just smash their face in. But outside of that, I mean, like, it doesn't seem that interesting to me. It doesn't seem that interesting to play. But anyways, that's all for the video today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. I love you. You guys take it easy. Bye.